So cognitive warfare, information warfare is important for China as it tries to, reach its goal of unification and to sort of influence hearts and minds. The new digital technologies that you've mentioned and social media. Can you tell us a bit about that?
We collaborate with platforms like Facebook, like YouTube.
Puma Shen is one of Taiwan's top operators when it comes to tackling China's cognitive warfare.
So we actually signed a contract with Facebook saying, so we can report some detailed cases saying that we found this piece of disinformation coming from China, and there are like, for example, 700 fake accounts has been circulating all this disinformation, and we have to prove that. So we can write detailed reports to the platform and saying that this should be taken down.
Did Facebook take down the accounts?
They not only take down all these accounts, sometimes because China are really good at spreading all this we call content from articles. They just have like more than 200 websites that spread all this kind of disinformation. So what Facebook did is that to block the URL, to block the link actually from these websites. And then they will change the name or the URL and spread more disinformation afterwards. And our task is to Spotify, like which website has been transformed and reported that to Facebook. I think it's in 2019, 2020, because China just realized it's useless to spread all this content from articles because Facebook's are blocking them. So what they did is that they used the AI voice to read the articles that are on all these websites, transform that into YouTube video, and then share the YouTube video links on Facebook. And Facebook told me that there's nothing they can do because they can never block the URL from YouTube. So that's why the battlefield right now transformed from Facebook to YouTube. And now we're working with YouTube on all this.
Can we go back a bit and talk about the Chinese language, Mandarin? This seems like it's both enabled CCP information warfare, but it's also enabled Taiwanese, isn't it, to, as you said, analyze?
That's a downside because we're speaking pretty much the same language. So that's why it's so easy for us to consume the knowledge from China. And they also make sure that we're used to consume the knowledge coming from China. So even we don't really use like simplified Chinese, but they're using all these kind of tools, especially TikTok, for people, getting used to this kind of language, get used to what they said, get used to their culture, used to the language they're using. So whenever they want to spread any information or ideology through these channels, you're getting used to it.
Tell me a bit more about the sophistication and the scale of what the CCP is doing. You mentioned, that as quickly as a URL is blocked, then they will create more. Do you have any statistics on, how quick do they do this? How many people are working for them?
Because there are like so many departments getting involved, so I believe there are like millions of them doing this kind of job. For example, the hackers, there are more than 100,000 hackers. They are working for the government. There is actually only 8 YouTube videos that try to criticize our national-made vaccine and also criticize our government, saying that they are not doing well, and also spread a conspiracy saying that our government intentionally let everyone get COVID because they can do some tests on us, that kind of conspiracy. So they have only operated for 3 months, but get 30 million view counts here in Taiwan. So as I mentioned, if they can get 30 million view counts from 8 channels, and Google already removed like 10,000 of them, you could see the scale, like how the volume of this information they could create it. And for example, the Communist Youth of League, there are like more than 80 millions of them. So just imagine each one of them just post one message here in Taiwan. We couldn't see correct information because the disinformation could be everywhere.
Yeah. So how does a country like Taiwan fight back?
There are like so many ways. The best strategy right now is still like you need to collaborate. Like even some people hate social media platforms, saying that they are creating all these echo chambers, but they are the channels right now. You just cannot remove all these channels. So what we did is that you need to report all this kind of stuff to the social media platform. But on the other hand, you should talk to international community or other governments, saying that what's the threat coming from China, and people should be aware of it. If people do not care about this information, do not care about the threat from China, like even you're disclosing all this, even you work with a social media platform, there's no way you can stop that. And then China knows that you're working with a social media platform. So there are so many ways they could fight back also. So one of the very, very prominent way to do that is even you block all these YouTube videos, they can just find someone locally here in your country who wants to be the YouTuber, who wants to be the live streamer. And if they're spreading all these pro-China or anti-US messages, they just pay you. And through the donation, when you're doing all this live stream. And there's no way you could stop that because it's free speech.
How many of these local YouTubers, influencers, do you estimate are in Taiwan working for the CCP?
How many of them?
Yeah.
Some of them are like very famous, so they try to reach some famous YouTubers and ask them to do something only in a certain period of time because they don't want them to do some pro-China, to deliver all these pro-China or anti-US messages all the time. You can only do it for like a month or 2 months so people won't speculate on you. But more in most scenarios, they approach the company instead of individual YouTubers. So as I know, there are like 3 companies has been approached a lot by United Front Work System and asking them, because they are live streaming platforms companies. So they sign lots of people who are doing live streaming on their platform and they're providing the script and providing the knowledge to all these live streamers saying, this is something that you should talk about when you do the live stream.
So kind of like a distribution system really is going on, isn't it? Do they care about the threat from China? I
don't think they care because it's just business. And some of the live streaming platform also have their business there in China. I think that's the reason why. A quick example here is that I think our last presidential election was in 2020. So when you look into the data in 2019, the top 10 YouTubers that received donations here in Taiwan, 7 of them actually spread pro-China messages. And the top one only got like 70,000 followers. It's not that many, but still she got the most donation through YouTube. I think that's how they could be influenced.
How much money are we talking about?
It's usually like $1 billion to $2 million at that time, 2019, but right now there's like more and more. And because we're only calculating the money coming from YouTube, but when they are doing all this live streaming, they're also asking, providing the QR code for you to scan, and then you can donate the money. When I scan it, it's Alipay and WeChat Pay. And it's so strange because people do not use Alipay and WeChat Pay here in Taiwan. And why are you doing all this live streaming here in Taiwan, but provide the payment system in China, which means that they know that the money is from China. But still, for us, it's still free speech.
Because Taiwan is a democratic country.
Right.
We'll probably get onto that a bit later too. You mentioned TikTok. There's also Line, which is a very popular messaging app in Taiwan. Tell us a bit about what makes these applications, so powerful for China in their information war. And can you reflect a little bit on traditional media? So we now shifted, I understand, to this social media platforms away from the so-called red media, which is the media that have been bought by Chinese companies or Chinese government in Taiwan.
I think before 2000, China focused a lot on traditional media. They approached lots of like reporters, journalists, like people who own the media, try to influence them previously. But after 2014, as I said, they focus more and more on social media. But it doesn't mean that they abandoned the approach of the so-called red media. They still want that to be very influential. But the things like TikTok, I think for younger generation, it's middle school or elementary school students are using TikTok right now. It's not senior high or university. When I doing survey right now at the college level, less than 10% of them are using TikTok. But I think it's still very terrifying because if the younger generation, they will grow up eventually if they're using TikTok, which means that they are consuming all this knowledge coming from China. And even most of them are entertainment. But because China, the government is actually behind TikTok, so they can alter the algorithm and then deliver the message that they want you to believe, that they want you to consume. So at the very beginning, even they are not manipulating the algorithm right now. But when everyone are so used to TikTok, they can alter that algorithm like suddenly when the war happens.
So they're like biding their time, which the Chinese are very good at. They've got that long view. You mentioned elementary school kids, so we're talking about 7-year-olds to
Yeah.
11-year-olds. And if we think about, say, step back and have a look at some of the CCP goals, the 2049 is this modernization, this national rejuvenation year, and then that is 20-something years in the future. So these are exactly the Taiwanese that the CCP want to target right now.
And it's within the textbook. They say that we want to target younger generation here in Taiwan. It's in the textbook. That's something they want to do. And also like Mao Zedong used to say, I don't know how to say that in English, but they say, if you want to influence someone, you have to 从娃娃抓起. It means that you have to start it from the babies.
Right.
That's a very CCP ideology.
Can you tell us about how the CCP is using the AI?
They could use AI, but I mean, long time ago, because there are like so many cyber armies on their side, so they can just use real people to write articles and disseminate all this kind of stuff to Taiwan.
Oh, so they've got the manpower.
Yeah, and they're also using prisoners. They're using prisoners to spread articles. Actually, they could work like in front of the computer, and then you can get some probation after that. So they got enough people to produce this kind of knowledge. But I mean, there are like several times we spot that they are using AI, especially from the content from articles. So they're using AI to generate the articles, but they still have the editor to edit afterwards. But once they harness all this AI technology, I think that will be very easy for them to just use AI to spread all this disinformation. And as I said, the YouTube video I just mentioned, where they try to transform the articles into the YouTube videos. Actually, they're using AI. And I believe there was a report like just a few days ago saying that how they use AI reporters actually on YouTube and using like a very big microphone to cover their faces. We actually spot like only 2 years ago. And how to spread all this disinformation by using AI technology. So they could upload it more than 500 or 1,000 videos like that per day.
And now let's go to the diaspora. Again, it's the use of the language, the Chinese language. Tell me how Chinese disinformation has spread, especially in Southeast Asia.
I mean, Chinese diaspora is one of the weapons, utilized by CCP. But we won't blame Chinese diaspora. So when you see China wants to influence certain countries, they always do something through the Chinese diaspora and using the newspaper that they got over there and using them to reach politicians or even pay some bribes over there. It's always about Chinese diaspora. But for me, Chinese diaspora, even they are weaponized, I treat them more as a victims because sometimes they cannot just escape from that. Especially when you look at the Chinese ambassadors all around the world, they're not only utilize Chinese diaspora, sometimes they're threatening them to do something or saying that if you do not collaborate it, maybe your family over there would get some treatment.
You mentioned the 2020 presidential election. Of course, we're coming into the 2024 presidential election when the current President Tsai Ing-wen will have to step down after 2 terms. So what sort of opportunity does this present to the CCP, and are you seeing anything?
I think people always care about election because in a democratic countries, there might be a huge switch because of election. But I think China is very patient. So when they try to insert certain ideology here or try to influence someone, it doesn't need to go through election. So if they see certain chances over there during the election, they'll definitely utilize that. But if there's no chance, they will just be patient and just let you do the election. So for example, for the election last year, our local election in 2022, you could see that China tried to spread lots of disinformation talking about the crime rate here in Taiwan. Or talking about the TSMC, whether they are going to move to the US is going to buy out the companies, some rumors like that. They're spreading all these conspiracy theories for more than a year.
Tell me about the link with TSMC.
Yeah, I think because our government has been promoting TSMC for a while, so that's why they choose TSMC as a target and make sure that people believe TSMC is going to betray Taiwan.
Is it because of the Silicon Shield?
Yeah, the Silicon Shield. And then they're also spreading the conspiracy theory saying that it is the US want TSMC to betray Taiwan. So the US is the real enemy here. And I think it's pretty successful because when our newspaper pick up the topic saying that, hey, the TSMC, some of their industry is going to move to there in the US. And when people already has been consumed all these conspiracy theories for almost a year, and when they read this news on the newspaper, the first thought for them is that, hey, the US is going to do something against Taiwan.
So that's interesting. So they actually sort of seeded this idea
Right.
before. Is it before or is it at the same time as
A year before.
A year before.
Yeah.
Because of course the news reports that you're talking about are, you know, the expansion of TSMC building their fabs in the state of Arizona for in partnership, I guess, with the US. Tell me about, you know, how disinformation works best when it's, you know, alongside some elements of truth.
So first, when we talk about information warfare, people always think about fake news, but it's more about conspiracy theories. So for Russia, for China, they always start with conspiracy theories. And they have to make sure that all these conspiracy theories has been believed by only a small group of people. If you spread the conspiracy theories all over Taiwan, it won't be successful because so many people have heard of the rumor and people would debunk that, would talk about it, and they will be neutralized. So you have to make sure you only spread to 5% to 10% of the citizens. And they firmly believe this is going to happen. And that would be the seed of the conspiracy theories. So for example, when they talk about the crime rate a year before, they try to spread all this disinformation saying that the crime rate here is so high. I mean, people suffer from that. And lots of people won't believe in that because the crime rate here in Taiwan is actually a little bit low here. But whenever there's any news saying that, hey, there's a crime over here in Taipei City, there's another one in New Taipei City, that will strengthen the rumor, the conspiracy theory saying that, hey, maybe our crime rate is getting higher and higher right now. And right now, there are like almost, I would say, 20% of them saying that the DTP is just the mafia. They're working with gangsters. That's why our crime rate is so high. And there's no way you could debunk that. And that's the real case of cognitive or information warfare, because the government couldn't just come out and say that, hey, the crime rate here in Taiwan is so low. If you actually say that, the newspaper or all the news, whenever there's any crime cases, they will report it and saying that, hey, you just say it's so low, why there's a case over here? And if even you try to do something to lower the crime rate, people won't feel it because the feel of this tension, the feel of whether the crime rate is high and low is actually from the media.
I want to talk about sort of like distrust and fear and also humor, because this is something that Audrey Tang has said works.
Right.
What's your view on that?
I believe that when we talk about fake news, I think humor really works. And then because if you're using humor, it means that people would spread the correct message because it's humor, right? So I think it's a very good strategy when it comes to fake news if you want to debunk that, because real news always spread slower than the fake news. So if you're using humor and you can catch up and try to spread to neutralize the effect of all these fake news. But when it comes to conspiracy theories, it's much more difficult. Like I said, the crime rate. There's no way that you can use humor to talk about crime rate. And so, I mean, they're really good at it. I mean, China is really good at it. They're picking up the topic that for us really hard to debunk.
And one of the biggest pieces of propaganda that you teach about is, you know, the CCP trying to get Taiwanese to surrender. Can you talk about some of the tactics that they use around that?
Yeah, because they really want us to be afraid of them. And so that's why they have spreading so many rumors talking about how strong their enemy is. Actually, the PLA is pretty strong, but maybe not as they describe. The end goal for them is always want Taiwanese people to surrender. Because if we surrenders, they don't have to do like other kinds of attacks. So signing the peace agreement to justify the invasion or asking us to surrender, that will be their end goal, their strategy. So we'll always talk about that during the class and make sure that people have the awareness, but not to surrender during the warfare.
So when we talk about information warfare or cognitive warfare, we often say that it's to influence people's perceptions, the way they think. But actually, as you said, the end goal is to alter the way they act.
In Taiwan, because they want to do the invasion. So it's all about how strong the China is, how lousy other country is. So you don't believe in Western countries, and you certainly want to believe in China, but also understand their threat. So in that kind of psychological atmosphere, under that circumstance, you would feel that you should surrender during the warfare. And there are so many people are pro-China here in Taiwan. They are also promoting the same ideology. So that's why this kind of ideology could be like amplified so quickly here in Taiwan.
Can you tell me about, the demand that you have for Puma Academy, and also reflect on possibly this is disinformation, that Taiwanese would not defend their own country?
Yeah, I won't be too optimistic on that but I won't be too pessimistic also, because when you look at the survey before the Ukraine warfare on Ukraine citizens, actually the percentage that the one who wants to defend their country is actually lower than the percentage we got here in Taiwan. So I think it really depends on the condition. And also it depends on the survey question. So what we should do is that not just only looking into all the survey results, it's more about how can we build up resilience. And also we want people to actually believe, even without any country's help, we could still defend ourselves. And I believe that the demand, it looks really high for Puma Academy, but I'm not that optimistic, because we only have limited lecturers. So that's why we couldn't offer lots of courses for people who wants to attend. So it looks like everyone is registering, always like register within the minute or like 5 minutes. But still, I think, I guess, it's a roughly guess, but like 200 to 300,000 people are very, very willing to take these kind of courses. But I think after that, it would be a challenging moment for us. If all these people has been, trained by us and attend all these courses, there are still lots of citizens they are apolitical, or they don't really care about this issue, don't care about the threat from China.
There's a disinterest, or is it a fear that, as you said, we're isolated? Is it a mixture of two, or?
According to the survey conducted by Academic Syndicate, actually, it's more about apolitical. It's more about don't care about this issue, only care about their lives, and doesn't get enough information from the media and thinking about the threat that posing to us. They used to feel the threat, I think, during the 2020 presidential election because of the social movement over there in Hong Kong. But people are very, I won't say short-sighted, but short memory. So if you're asking them right now, people just don't feel the threat, even it is on the news. So I believe some of the survey provided by Academic Syndicate, even they ask people, if the missiles or the airplanes comes in more and more often, would you feel like much more afraid? I think like only 30% of them thinks that that might be the case that we should be afraid of. But almost 50% of them saying that I don't think there's any difference from that situation to the situation right now.
So you mentioned Ukraine, and you mentioned there had been a change. From your perspective, what do you think Taiwan can learn in terms of the information warfare?
I think for the information warfare, first is that there's one thing needs to be noticed is that Russia tried to initiate the information warfare against other 42 countries 4 months before the war happened. Which means that if China wants to initiate this kind of warfare against Taiwan, we should be aware of which country they have been targeted, because they want the media warfare, they want the momentum to be changed, not just here in Taiwan, but also in other maybe 30 or 40 countries. So we should monitor the information, especially in Chinese language, in other countries to make sure if we see any topic change or the volume change in other countries. It might mean that China is going to do something against Taiwan. I think that's something we could learn from the Ukraine warfare. And the other thing is that Ukraine is really good at collaborating with other countries, especially Poland. So there are lots of organizations from Poland actually provide the cyber army and also the websites for people in Ukraine to upload it to certain websites and show what's the real images of the war right now happening around your neighborhood. So if you can access the websites and if you click on your neighborhood, you will definitely know what happened around here. And if you receive any messages that does not align with the message you saw on the websites, it means that they're fake news. So you don't need to debunk the fake news like piece by piece. You just provide them what's the correct information. It's just like during the COVID-19, every afternoon at 2 o'clock, our government will provide some correct information. We need that kind of system also during the warfare.
Right. And so should we be setting that up now?
Definitely. You need you need a verified system. So people who could upload the video or the images should be verified. And the way to verify them is first, I know in Ukraine, the way they verify is that they're using the app. Originally, that you use that app to report your tax. So it means that you're actually the citizen here. So if you're not, and then you could not upload all these images and videos. And every time when you upload one fake, like videos or images, you'll be blocked. And then you also need a group of people that can verify all this. You cannot just use the AI technology. You need real people to see whether this is a real picture or real videos. And then, but because in Ukraine, they starting from 2015, they actually have groups of people, more than 100,000 of them doing this kind of stuff. We should establish all these, we should unify these experts, I think right now. And they should practice like every month to debunk or like to see what kind of images or videos coming from China, this kind of stuff. And they would be the one who could verify these messages during the warfare. And in 5 minutes, in 10 minutes, all real messages could be online.
Yeah. Tell me about the collaboration, A, with other countries, and B, with the Taiwanese government.
We believe that the command still needs to be coming from the government, not from us. So that's why we need to sync more with the departments of interior, the fire department, the police department, because they are the one who would do the command and ask all these experts, hey, you should do this, you should do that. And we need that kind of system right now for every district. There should be like a volunteer center for people who already got all this kind of training. They could gather like every month or like even every 2 weeks to talk with each other, know each other. They would be the force that could defend our district all around Taiwan. And that's the system we should establish.
You are talking with government. You know, how do they respond to this advice?
I think the departments of interior, we got very positive feedback from them. So we're actually talking with police department and fire department right now. We sync the knowledge and we make sure that what they're going to deliver to the citizen actually are also delivered by us. There's no conflict between on the government side and on Puma Academy side. It's a little bit difficult to communicate with a defense department because I think they have their own thinking. But I think along the way, I think we can reach some consensus that what should the military do? What should we do? And how can we help the military during the warfare? Because we're friends, right? I mean, we're all Taiwanese. If you fight the warfare, we should back you up. And what should we do? We should talk more with the defense department. And actually, the majority of the civil defense should be students. So the Ministry of Education would be very important in this case.
Is Taiwan going fast enough?
Not really. I think for the case there in Ukraine, and they still think that they are not well prepared for this warfare, even for the territorial defense. So for us, I don't think we have enough time. But still, I mean, even we don't have enough time, we still need to do that, right? And when people ask me when do we have the warfare, I always tell them it might be tomorrow. So we need that kind of mindset to prepare for the warfare.
And KAM Academy does have a target which was set by Robert Cao, one of your donors.
Right.
And he would like to see up to 3 million Taiwanese trained over a few years. How are you going with that sort of target? I hear that so far there have been 1,000 people who've come through the KAM Academy in a few months, or is it 6 months?
Because we have been established for such a long time, but we don't have enough money to do this kind of courses. So right now is the moment when we got all these resources coming from Robert, and that's why we could expand right now. So actually, the 3 million ideas were actually discussed like internally with us and with Robert, because I believe that we need. I mean, at the very beginning, I believe we need 9 million of them to do. To have all this kind of training. So 3 million won't be enough for us. And if you can train students, there are like 1.2 million of them actually from junior and senior high school. So, and there will be a majority of the civil defense, and also people who got retired, people who are working right now, with people who won't be on the front line. They're all the core of the civil defense. So we're going to have our own booklet circulated among the citizens. We're going to have, we call it hybrid courses. So they would have online courses taught, and then when they learn all this knowledge online, they have to come to the physical place and do some practice, and then we can give them certificate.
We talked about collaborations, how important they are internationally. Can you tell us about any collaborations that you've had with the US or Eastern European countries?
I think we got lots of knowledge from the US side. There are like, the civil defense is actually also from the civil society. So we get some knowledge from them. Some experts already provide us the framework, how to train that, how many teachers you need, all this kind of knowledge. But we also need lots of experience coming from East Europe because they have a very similar history as Taiwan.
How do you think Taiwan will fare if China was to invade?
I'm not sure if the war happens tomorrow. I'm not that optimistic because there are like so many people still wants to surrender, especially from a little bit from retired people or like retired officials, especially.
They think that to surrender means to survive.
Yeah, some of them believe that because like once you surrender, you will survive, but that won't be the case.
So what do you believe?
I believe that because the last region that signed a peace agreement with China is Tibet. And so we just let the people know, just try to let the people know what's the situation right now in Tibet, what's the situation right now here in Hong Kong or in East Turkestan.
Or in Xinjiang.
Yeah, they won't keep their promise.
So Kitch Lau told me that, you know, we need to do more in terms of telling people what might happen to them, even if they surrender. He talked about mass concentration camps.
I think that's how CCP works. They always say that they will keep the island, but not the people. And that's the ideology they have injected within their army. So for them, there won't be any limit. They will just kill our citizens, just like White Terror era.
And how do we tell Taiwanese this?
Like, there are lots of people who don't care about what's happening there in Hong Kong or in Xinjiang. And I think that is the moment that we should show more cases.
So resilience is what is, you know, helping the Ukrainians. Will resilience save Taiwanese?
Definitely, because if you get more resilience, they will think about the cost. And if the cost is too high to invade Taiwan, they might stop it. So there are like so many things that needs to be established, not just the resilience itself, but we also need to deliver this kind of resilience to the international community, but also to China.